Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if I can get this thing to work again. Unfortunately, we have to put in all these keywords that doesn't mean anything but allows you to get into the computer. Yes, Rick and I will be sort of tag teaming through this presentation. There's a lot of information in the 2012 April issue. And I'll start off with who makes the best cars. This is something we've been doing, I believe, for 5 years now, which is actually rating the auto manufacturers of how they perform, not only in terms of the test scores that is generated on the test track, this is what it looks like now. Well, it doesn't look like now because it's covered in snow, so I've been told, which is most unfortunate. But this is how it looks in the summer. We have 327 acres. We have about 7 miles of roads, probably more than 7 miles now, because we're continuing to add different courses to test different aspects of the vehicles. But we do we test about 80 cars that we buy anonymously from local dealers. We're actually, I think this week, going to buy a Fisker, which is going to blow our bank for the first time at $110,000 or $112,000. Anonymously from a local dealer, and we'll see how that performs. We have seen it before and have driven it a couple of times, so we'll see how the real one actually works. The road test score, which is half of what we call the manufacturer's report card, comes from the work that we do at the test track. We do about 50 different tests and evaluations on every car that we test. And those really look at the safety of the vehicles. We look at braking, emergency handling, seat comfort, trunk space, fuel economy. We splice a fuel meter into the fuel line, measure the amount of fuel that the engine consumes during strictly controlled tests on the test track and on the public roads. And for the electric vehicles, we've done the Leaf, the Volt. We've just got an I, and now we'll have the Fisker as well. We actually monitor the kilowatt hours that we use and then convert it to miles per gallon equivalent. So in the road tests, you'll see that for the plug-in hybrids and also the EVs. On the other side of the manufacturer's report card, we send a questionnaire out to the 8 million subscribers. It actually goes out to about 5, but we have about 8 million subscribers. It goes out to 5 million of those who are good enough to give us their email address and also don't have 2 different subscriptions. And they tell us how reliable their cars have been in everyday life. And last year we got back information on about 1.3 million cars. So it's a huge survey of its kind. And when we put those 2 scores together, we come out with the manufacturer's report cards. And this is how they stack up. Subaru rises to the top. Small manufacturer, yes, but produces very good cars that are all extremely reliable. So a very good ranking for Subaru. They were in 2nd place last year. They've improved slightly this year. But what's caused them to be there is possibly the new Impreza. Very good car. You'll hear a little bit more about that to come. Mazda also rises to the top. Again, another relatively small manufacturer that produces really good cars that are all reliable. They've also shedded some of their slightly unreliable cars like the RX-8 and the Tribute this year, so that really helped their scores in some ways. Honda. Honda seems to have been sort of falling from grace over the last 3 or 4 years at least. We noticed back in 2009 when we tested the TL, the TSX, and the Pilot that they weren't as good as the previous cars. Since then, they've come out with the Insight, which doesn't really get particularly good fuel economy, isn't particularly nice to drive, and gets absolutely trounced by the Prius. Then they came out with the CRZ. Again, a not particularly nice car to drive, wasn't particularly sporty, wasn't particularly fuel efficient, we're not quite sure what it was. Nice styling, and talking of styling, ugly styling with the Cross Tour. You know, it wasn't really a wagon, doesn't have an awful lot of space inside, the rear visibility is quite poor. So really from the test score point of view, you know, Honda's been dropping. Reliability is still very good. Unfortunately, Ford, from a lot of work that they've been doing over the past years, has dropped this year. This is mainly due to reliability issues. And these are in 2 main areas, really. When you look at the My Ford Touch, My Lincoln Touch, a lot of those had systems that would freeze, buttons that you would, well, they're not buttons, they're just areas on this complicated screen that you try and touch. You touch it once, nothing would happen, so you touch it again, and due to the delay in the system, you would think that the system wasn't working because it would turn itself on, then turn itself off again. A lot of blank screens, a lot of replacements. And in the Focus and Fiesta, they introduced the power shift transmission, which is a direct shift, basically a manual transmission that is shifted automatically. And they've had a lot of problems with those, and going through our reliability data, they've been replacing a lot of those transmissions as well. So Ford from there, you know, almost up at the Toyota level in terms of reliability, has dropped considerably this year. Chrysler still trails. Yeah, they're the bottom of the manufacturers. But when you look at what Chrysler's been doing with new products recently, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the Durango, the 300, and the Charger, all heavily redesigned. Most of them have been reliable. We're not quite sure about the 300 because we didn't have enough sample size because of the late introduction. But those newly designed Chrysler vehicles have both been reliable and very competitive in the marketplace. So they've come up quite a long way. The problem is they're still held back by a lot of their old product. The 200 and Avenger was warmed over, but it's difficult to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and they're still really at the bottom of the charts in terms of family sedans. The Caliber has never been particularly good, and the Jeep Patriot and Compass have also pretty poorly rated. So the newly redesigned Chryslers that we've seen are doing well, and I think once they get rid of that old product, they could be going well. Just to put it on a different format, we can see where Subaru is right out here as the top manufacturer. What we're looking at here is, this is the road test score down here, and on the vertical axis is looking at reliability. So this is the area where you want to be in. As you can see, we've still got Honda, Toyota, Mazda, and Subaru up there. Subaru is top. When we look at where Mazda was in 2011, they've come up a long way with their new Mazda 3. They've got the Mazda CX-5 coming out soon. But their 6 is still good and reliable. The CX-9 is still pretty good. CX-7 is reliable, but not particularly good. Where we look where Honda was, this is where Honda was last year, you know, pretty close to where Mazda was. They've dropped in terms of test score. Their reliability is still pretty good, but they're dropping in terms of test score. When we look at Ford, this is where Ford was last year, in getting towards the top quadrant, and they've dropped quite a long way in terms of reliability, although their test scores have improved. And when we look at Chrysler, this is where Chrysler was. It wasn't even on the charts last year, and has improved dramatically. But again, they've still got a long way to go. But I think once they get rid of their older product, it should really help them in terms of their performance. Looking at the hits and misses in terms of the redesigns, this is just looking at the overall test scores of various cars to sort of add to what I've just been talking about. If you look at the most improved, a lot of those cars on there are from Chrysler, Subaru, Jeep, Chevrolet, all done very well. Surprisingly, the cars that haven't done well, VW, Toyota, Honda, all in this lower half where, yes, they've produced very good cars, but they're not keeping that gap of building extremely good cars. A lot of cost saving has gone into this. And it's quite strange because the old dichotomy of, well, if I'm going into a domestic car dealership, I'm likely to find cheap interiors, you know, not particularly well styled, not very nice to drive sort of cars. But what we're seeing now is the quality of the interiors in the domestic cars is much better now than people like Honda, Toyota, and VW. VW used to be almost like a poor man's BMW or poor man's Audi, especially the Jetta, and the new Jetta is just so cheap and tacky inside, as is the Honda Civic. And what we see in many of the domestic cars is a lot more feature content, which you used to think of the Japanese manufacturers as of having all the feature content in there. But you know, most of them come with Bluetooth. There's iPod integration. There's a lot of those features that the Honda, Toyota, and VW seem to want to charge extra for, or bundle it with packages, etc. And when we're looking at good ride and handling, you know, the Accord and the Camry used to be the standout in terms of those cars. Today, you know, the Camry is still extremely good, but the Accord is now sort of getting pretty long in the tooth, and some of the other cars that they've come up with, you know, the Civic doesn't drive as well as the old Civic. The old Civic used to be almost fun to drive. The new one is sort of really dead. The steering's dead. The overall ride quality is not as good. And yet we're seeing sort of really good, the Cruise from GM and the LaCrosse, Chrysler 300 and Charger still very good. The Jeep Grand Cherokee is really good. You know, and Ford with the Focus and the Fiesta, really good small cars in terms of feature content, good ride and handling. And interesting designs as well. Not that we rate designs, but you know, to the marketplace, the design of a car is really important. That's it from me, and I'm going to hand it over to Rik Paul, who's going to go through our top picks.
Thanks, Jan. And he'll be back.
That's unfortunate.
So I am going to go through our top picks, which are the best cars in 10 categories. And this year we have 4 new models in this year's list, but of bigger news, Toyota is dominating this year with 5 models in the 10 spots. And it's the first time since 2003 that one brand has done that, and in 2003 it was Honda. Also, this year we have 1 model each from Chevrolet, Ford, Hyundai, Infiniti, and Subaru. Now, before I get into them, what does it take to be a top pick? Well, a vehicle must meet 3 criteria. It must rank at or near the top of its category in our overall test score, which, as Champ mentioned, is based on more than 50 individual tests and evaluations. It must have average or better reliability based on our latest annual auto survey. And it must perform well if it's been tested in government or insurance industry crash or rollover tests. So now here are our top picks for 2012. In the family sedan category, a Toyota Camry Hybrid is a new pick. It's redesigned for 2012 and very improved. And with the Camry provides great fuel economy and practical, comfortable family car. Its 38 mpg overall is not only impressive for a car of this size, but it's as good or better than some smaller hybrids that are less practical. And being a Camry, it also provides comfortable ride and roomy, quiet, nicely finished interior. Now, okay, the Camry Hybrid at about $29,000 is a little pricey for some people. So we've also created a category we call affordable family sedan. And this year it's going to be the Hyundai Sonata. And for less than $22,000, the 4-cylinder Sonata provides a roomy, well-equipped cabin, nimble handling, and provides decent visibility despite the coupe-like styling, which we can't say about a lot of cars these days. A lot of cars that have that sloping coupe-like styling are very hard to see out of in the rear. Now the Sonata also gets 27 mpg, or it gets 27 mpg, which is tied for best in its class among conventional cars, that is non-hybrids and diesels. Another new pick for this year is the Subaru Impreza for small sedan. And this was redesigned for 2012 as well, and this is a small car that doesn't feel like a small car. It's a well-rounded sedan, the roomy interior, nimble handling, and a comfortable ride that rivals some luxury sedans. Now, it also gets 27 mpg, which is impressive for an all-wheel drive car. Our 4th new pick for this year is the Toyota Highlander for family SUV, although it's the 5th time that it's been in our top picks. Last year's winner, the Kia Sorento, came in below average in reliability this year, which allowed the Highlander to get back in there. And this is a comfortable, quiet, refined SUV that carries up to 8 people. Nicely finished interior. Now the V6 gets 18 mpg, which is decent for that class. The hybrid gets 27 mpg, which is best of any SUV we've tested. In our green car category, we once again picked the Toyota Prius for the 9th straight year. Now, we have tested a couple electric cars in the past year, which actually get higher MPG equivalent. but the Prius provides the best blend of efficiency and practicality. Its 44 mpg is still the most fuel-efficient non-plug-in car in our ratings. And in addition to fuel economy, it's also pleasant to drive with a roomy interior, comfortable ride. The new Prius V Wagon got 41 mpg in our tests, which is tops in that category. For sporty car, we once again picked the Ford Mustang. And this is a well-rounded sports car that also works well for everyday driving. In addition to strong performance, it provides agile handling, decent ride, comfortable front seats, good interior fit and finish, and good fuel economy for its class as well. In the sports sedan category, we once again picked the Infiniti G, and this is the sixth straight year for the G. And this provides a great combination of luxury and driving fun. It's as at home, weaving down a two-lane backcountry road as it is cruising on the highway. And by the agile handling, strong acceleration, well-crafted interior. For small SUV, we picked the Toyota RAV4 again. This is the 10th time it's been in our top picks, and that's because it's an inviting blend of performance, fuel economy, and versatility. Its the four-cylinder model provides 23 mpg, which is among the best in its class, and the V6 version is as quick as many sports sedans and gets only 1 mpg less than the four-cylinder. For a category we call family hauler, we picked the V6 Toyota Sienna minivan. And that's a great choice for families that need plenty of room for people or gear, with a versatile, comfortable interior. Now, we only recommend the front-wheel drive Sienna this year because the all-wheel drive version came in below average in reliability. So it's the front-wheel drive V6 Sienna is our top pick. And finally, in the pickup truck category, the Chevrolet Avalanche is our pick again, and it provides the best combination of utility and versatility. Its unified bed and cab helps it provide a quiet, comfortable ride, and its innovative rear partition folds down to open up more cargo space, allowing longer cargo to extend from the bed into the cab. Now, the Avalanche does have a large rear blind zone, so we do recommend getting the optional backup camera for that car, for that truck. And now, Champ again.
Thanks, Rick. Not everybody is able to buy a new car, and we've looked at how we can really dissect some of our reliability data to help people look at used cars. So this year we've looked at cars that are the most problem-free. So rather than looking whether the cars have got more or less problems against the average car, we looked at cars that had no problems. Because if you own a car, that's what you want. You want a car that you never have to take to a dealer to get it repaired. So this is looking back across surveys. We looked at the 2002 survey and the 2011 survey and looked at cars that were 3 years old. And this basically looks at where they stand up. Again, you know, the Japanese manufacturers pretty much top in terms of the overall reliability of their 3-year-old cars. You know, Toyota really hasn't changed that much. Subaru has got a little better. Honda's gone down just a touch. But pretty much this is where they are. If we look at the other end of the scale, we've seen huge improvements from some manufacturers. You know, people like VW and General Motors really improving their 3-year-old products. So this is a look at where used cars are. So if you're looking to buy a 3-year-old used car, you know, back in 2002, you probably wanted to stick away from a General Motors car because of reliability. You know, today it's a little less of a risk, but you've got to be really careful over which model that you actually go and look at. This is something that we'll be doing more in the future, and it's a way of looking at the reliability of cars for the used car buyer looking at a 3-year-old car. Some of the cars that have really done well, when a car is 1 year old, you know, it might have something like the Prius, 6 problems per 100 vehicles. By the time it's 5 years old, it's only got 26 problems per 100 vehicles. You look at the other end of the scale, something like a Mini Cooper S hatchback, at 1 year old had 9 problems per 100. By the time it gets to 5, it's got 112 problems per 100. Now that's what really racks people off when they've had a brand new car. They get to 3 years old. Now they're having to pay for that repair. Now they're having to dip into their own pocket to get it fixed. And as the years go on, also that used car value of those unreliable cars also goes down because people don't want to be landed with that sort of problem rate. You know, even looking at a town and country minivan or Grand Caravan, you know, 17 problems in its first year, still not good, but not that bad when you look at the best at 6, you know, it's not that far out. But when you look at 100 problems, you know, that means every single minivan had to go into the dealer to have something done. And that is not something that people want to really look at. So what we did this year in the April issue was look at, okay, if you are going out to buy a used car, what are the best of the best? So in various price categories, we picked various cars that we thought were the best used cars to go and look at. And they're the ones that are most reliable, have electronic stability control, and you know, really did perform well in our testing. And then we also looked at cars by price range. So depending on how much you were going to spend on a car, which cars had average or better reliability, and when was ESC either optional or standard, because we want you to have a safe car as well. These are some of the cars to avoid. As you can see, there's quite a few on that list. And these are cars that are notoriously unreliable and by model year, and these are the ones that we think you should stay away from. So it's another little tidbit of information to really make the April issue a real consumer magazine, whether you're looking at a new car or a used car, we've put both in there. And I'll hand it back to Rik.
Definitely getting our exercise. Okay, so this year we did a fun little survey when we looked at top driving gripes. And this basically answers the question, what annoys drivers most? This is the first time we've done this. So to answer that question, the number one gripe among drivers in the survey was texting on a cell phone while driving. Number 2, able-bodied drivers parking in handicap spaces. Number 3, tailgaters. Number 4, drivers who cut you off. And number 5, speeding and swerving in and out of traffic. And probably a lot of you relate to these. If you're like us, probably both in some cases. This was a nationally representative survey done by our National Research Center, in which we asked about 900 people to rate 20 common gripes on a 1 to 10 scale. 1 means it does not annoy you at all. 10 means it annoys you tremendously. And interestingly, full 2/3 of the respondents rated the top 2 behaviors, texting and the handicap spaces, as a full 10. Now here's the whole list that you'll see in the magazine. You'll see the top 5 there at the top, and there's a distinct cutoff there between the 5 and drops down there. But 8.9 for the texting at the top, down to 5.7 for cranking up the radio volume, which is the least annoying behavior of the 20. Now we did see some demographic differences too. For instance, women were significantly more annoyed by each of the top 5 behaviors, as well as 14 of the 20 gripes overall. And age differences we saw. Older drivers were more annoyed by texting, swerving in and out of traffic, talking on a cell phone, jaywalkers stepping in front of your car, excessive horn honkers, and drivers who crank up their radio volume. Also, younger drivers were more annoyed, on the other hand, by drivers who don't go when the light turns green, and bicycles who don't let you by. Now, respondents under 35, interestingly, were hardly annoyed at all by drivers who crank up their radio volume. Okay, so that was a fun survey. One last thing we want to cover in this is an article we called "Stopping Crashes with Smarter Cars." And basically, for this, we sent 2 of our staffers to get firsthand experience with vehicle-to-vehicle communication systems, which many experts consider to be the next big step in auto safety. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says that it has the potential to help drivers avoid or minimize up to about 4.4 million non-impaired crashes each year, which is about 80%. And actually, we're proud to have Ron Medford here from NHTSA to answer any questions after this on that system, since they're heavily involved in that. Now, vehicle-to-vehicle communication systems, commonly called V2V, but there are systems that allow a car to communicate with roadside infrastructure such as traffic lights, which is often called V2I. Taken together, more and more we're seeing that the system as a whole called V2X, which is what we used in our article. Now, essentially, this system allows cars to talk to each other. Vehicles transmit their speed, location, and direction of travel up to about 1,000 feet in all directions on a continual basis. Other vehicles that are equipped with the right receivers can receive that data and then calculate whether an accident is likely to occur, and even if the driver can't see the other car. And the system will then warn the driver with visual and audible alerts and sometimes tactile alerts. And another benefit of this is it can alert distracted drivers even if they're looking away from the road. Now, V2X technology can help drivers avoid head-on collisions because it can warn them if it's unsafe to pass because of an approaching vehicle. Side impacts, because it can alert them that a vehicle is about to run a red light or even a stop sign. Also, whether it's unsafe to make a left-hand turn because of an oncoming vehicle. It can help avoid rear-end collisions because it can warn you if a car in your lane, even if it's several cars up and you can't see it, if it's braking suddenly, or if there's a car, say, stalled around a bend and you can't see that, it can warn you about those kinds of things. Also, it can warn you if it can help you prevent accidents while changing lanes by warning you if a car's in your blind spot, or if you turn on your turn signal and something's there, it'll beep loudly at you. Now, our reporter Liza Barth attended a driver clinic in Alameda, California, conducted by NHTSA. There, she drove 8 vehicles from different automakers, each equipped with a full V2X system. The vehicles could send and receive the same data, and they differed only in how they alerted the driver to potential hazards through the warnings. Ford and GM used directional vibrations in the seats, a haptic warning where it's actually directional, so that if a hazard was on the right side of the car, for instance, you'd feel a little vibration in the right side of the seat cushion. Now, Liza said that this type of warning here seemed to be particularly effective because it was a bright band of lights. It's on the dash, reflects in the windshield, and was accompanied by a loud, audible alert. And she said that was particularly impactful. And I think it was on Ford and Mercedes cars. Now, also, our human factors engineer, Tom Mutchler, who works at the Auto Test Center, attended Ford's Intelligent Intersection in Dearborn, Michigan. There's a traffic signal that transmits data to cars. It transmits a detailed map of the intersection, the status of the light, whether it's red, yellow, or green, and also a correction factor for the car's GPS to help the car pinpoint itself more precisely in the intersection, which is important in multi-lane intersections. With that information, a car can warn the driver if the driver's about to run a red light or even about to run a stop sign in nearby adjacent intersections. Now, both of our staffers were impressed with the effectiveness and potential safety benefits of the system. They see that they can be more effective than current collision warning systems that depend on radar or cameras and have a narrower field of view. And they see the potential for fewer false positives. And that false positives is one reason that current users of these warning systems will maybe turn them off, and which defeats them totally. And also, V2X is less expensive, so it's going to be easier to equip both new and existing cars with the technology, which of course is key to get to making the system work. Is the more cars out there with the technology to be able to send information back and forth, the more effective it will be. Now, of course, that's years in the future. It'll take a few years to get there. As technology trickles out, it will become effective, more effective as it develops. And Consumer Reports, we've advocated new important safety advances for a long time. We were fully behind electronic stability control as it was being developed and integrated into cars, and we see that this really could be the next big step in auto safety. So we think that technology is definitely worth pursuing, but adequate oversight needs to be maintained of how the information is used to ensure privacy of drivers and to prevent abuse. And then we also, want to remind people that even with full V2X system, it's still just a driving aid, and no system is perfect. So motorists, even then, will still need to drive responsibly and stay focused on the road. And that's it. Thank you.
Any
Questions?
What is your take on audible warnings for visually impaired pedestrians as cars become quieter and be with all electrics almost silent?
We believe that, yes, there should be an audible, but it should be something that is common to all vehicles. Unfortunately, at the moment, we've got many different sounds that cars make. We have the Fisker that makes some sort of warbling noise, sounds like Darth Vader's walking up behind you. It's sort of all those different sounds. I think for a visually impaired person, it should be a common sound. So I'll be talking to Ron on that one.
Will you share the PowerPoint?
Is the PowerPoint on there?
It's on every memory stick.
Thank you. Yes. I can answer that question.
I don't think we received it.
Memory stick? They have memory sticks. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
A quick one about this third release in here about used cars being better deal than ever. How much more expensive do they have to get before that's no longer true? Because they're expensive right now.
They're getting expensive now. Sorry. When you look at used cars, they're still below what a new car will cost. Once you start getting up there towards the 20,000, 25,000 for a used car, your loan is likely to be more expensive because it's a used car rather than a new car, and that's where you need to make that trade-off. And on our website, we've got various tools to look at the difference between the two. But when you're looking at used cars below sort of $15,000, there's nothing you can really buy that you want to be seen in or drive below that price. So, although we just bought an IQ, which... Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ben.